Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new episode of I Talk to Notebooks. I'm your host Sarah, and today we are going to be doing a topic in journaling. That is one of those old school style PowerPoint presentation videos that I did a long while back about more the philosophy and discussing various topics behind journaling, for lack of a better phrase. And today we are actually going to be talking about barriers to our journaling practice, or more simply put, why am I not journaling? Or why am I not journaling more? And this is actually going to be a 3-part video because I was writing the script for it and it was just huge and overwhelming, and I think it would be a lot to take in. So I thought I would just do this in 3 parts. And so this is going to be part 1 of 3. And I'm actually going to be making this video based on a survey that went out a few weeks back that I made about why people don't journal, because I had a video prepared with a script about this very topic, and it turns out that it was kind of oversimplified, and I wanted to find out what people, everyday people besides myself, were dealing with when it came to journaling. So I included not only options that matched my own experience, but also options that didn't match my own experience to see what other people were running into. And sure enough, I was surprised by some of the barriers that people were hitting in their own journaling practice. So I'm going to go through this very point by point, hit the answers that got a lot of responses and the ones that didn't get so many, because we did have fewer than 100 responses, so I think we can get to them all in this 3-part series. And I'm going to just rapid fire come up with solutions for these individual problems so that people don't get stuck when they're journaling, because this is a really common problem that a lot of people face. Whether they're articulating it specifically or not, people do run into issues with their journaling practice and not keeping it up consistently, or as consistently as they would like to. If you're happy with your journaling practice, even if you're only writing once every month or twice a year or once every 5 years, then you don't need this video because you're happy with your practice. This is for people who aren't happy with their practice. So without further ado, I want to start out with a little bit of an overview of the survey. I'm going to try to link and share the survey results in the description. There's also going to be lots of resources in the description relating to what I am talking about here. Alright, so the number 1 most popular response to the question, which was why am I not journaling as much as I would like to be, was the following. I am usually too tired to journal once I have the time, and instead use that time in other ways. So this was a subcategory of the response about people who had a lot to write about during the day, but by the time they can actually sit down, they don't actually end up writing. And this was around 25% of the respondents who responded this way. And by the way, let me just put up here that there were 81 respondents in total. Okay, so this was the most popular response, about a quarter of the people in total, and this was a sub-response. This just seemed to be something where people get home from a long day of work, they're exhausted, and although they would like to journal, they have stuff that they'd like to write about, they're just doing other stuff, whether it is meal prepping or dealing with their kids or just trying to watch TV and fall asleep. People have very, very busy lives, so journaling is not a priority for them by the time they get home from their busy day. Now, the other 2 most popular answers actually weren't sub-responses, they were just categories. So I'm going to do the categories. So number 2 most popular category was I don't have anything to write about. There is no way to change the default paste option in PowerPoint. Guess they just forgot to put that feature in. Who needs it? Am I right? Alright, so that one I was expecting to be the number 1 answer, so already we were defying expectations. But wait until you guys see what the number 3 most popular category was, because this is the one that really shocked me. Are you ready? Can you stand the anticipation? Because I can't. I have too much to write about. Okay, that was around, guess how many? 6%, 5%, 11%. Almost as many people as didn't have enough to write about had too much to write about, if you can believe that. So, This is fascinating, and we're going to get into it right away. So the first category was, I have a lot to journal about during the day, but by the time I'm actually free to sit down and write, the moment has passed. This was the most amount of people said this. Oh, interesting. We got a bullet flying in out of nowhere. Very interesting. And that is just gorgeous. Beautiful. We're going to leave that like that. So that was the most popular response. And there were a couple of sub-responses underneath. First and foremost, this one here that we just talked about. I don't know where that O is coming from, but I don't like it. About being too tired once you get home from work, presumably. So how can we overcome this problem? Well, you come home, you're tired, and you want to flop down on the bed, and you don't want to journal, but then later you wish you had, because you don't have those memories to look back on, you don't have the benefits of processing your thoughts. Well, there are a couple different ways you can do it. One way is, of course, to adjust your priorities. I'm going to mention this now, and then it's going to be assumed for the rest of the bullet points, because this is always an option you can look into. For some people, not having the time or wanting to use the time another way can be an issue of priorities. Sometimes it can be an issue of necessity. In most cases, when you say you don't have time to do something or that you have to do something else instead, that's a choice, and you can change that choice. But some people really are kind of forced by life to just survive, and they don't have time for luxuries like journaling. So you have to do some reflection and decide whether or not you fall into the priorities category or whether or not you fall into the necessity category. And you've got to decide what to do about that. Let's assume that your priorities are in line and this is just your situation. That's what we're going to do for all these other ones, because a lot of them boil down to not having the time. You can do bullet point journaling, which is just simply, instead of writing paragraphs in prose, you just write down the bullets of your day. This is the fastest way to memory keep journaling. This is the idea behind a lot of 5 lines a day journaling, 5 minutes a day journals, where you just have a very limited amount of space to summarize your day, and then you move on with your life. This is great when you're tired. This is great when you are crunched for time. So this is one that's going to be coming up again and again and again in this video. So we're going to move along a lot faster after the first few. The third one, which is also going to be very common in this video, is what I call the memorabilia method, which actually is not as time consuming as it sounds. As you go about your day as a busy person in the world, particularly once lockdown ends wherever you are, what you can do is you can actually just save your receipts throughout the day. You can save the pictures you take and send to other people. You can take screenshots of your text messages. And even if you're driving or walking somewhere by yourself and you have that little bit of privacy, we all have our phones on us all the time. So you can actually use either text-to-speech or just the voice memo app and record. Text-to-speech in the Notes app would be the best way, and just record what you're thinking about. And yeah, text-to-speech doesn't have punctuation. It doesn't really organize the ideas in a great way, but if you have a printer, you can just print that out and just stick it in, and those are your thoughts for the day. That's your journal entry. It doesn't provide all the same benefits as writing by hand, which has been shown through studies to actually help you organize your thoughts and remember things better, but it's better than just having thoughts bottled up in your head with no release and no outlet for them whatsoever. So this memorabilia method, it just involves gluing, sticking, taping. You can do it while you're watching TV. It doesn't require a lot of concentration, and you can just slam that stuff in there and it will be no big deal. So the next one is the same. We're gonna have the same solutions. I'm not even gonna write it down, but people are saying that they forget by the time they are sitting down and writing, they've actually forgotten what they were gonna write about. So yeah, again, if you use audio recording, you use screenshots of your texts or what you did throughout the day. A lot of people take pictures throughout the day to send to their friends. You can save that stuff, and that can just be your journal entry. You don't even have to add text if you don't want to. Here's another one that's a little bit different. So here we're going to do this one. Put that there. Back up a slide. This O is actually the bullet point. That's interesting. Gets stuck for some reason. It thinks it's an O when I copy it. Isn't that interesting? So things that I would have liked to journal about seem less important in retrospect. Who among us have not faced this, where you sit down to write about something that was bothering you all day and you just feel like an idiot? Who's going to write this tripe down? Who's going to write it down? It's not going to be me, that's who. So here's what you can do instead. Again, you can use the memorabilia method. You can use highlights from your day to just get your memories down without having to worry about writing down trite thoughts that don't seem as important anymore, so you aren't just wasting paper and pen on things that you don't care about. But other stuff you can do is you can just journal about other things as well. So you can journal your memories. You can journal your dreams. You can, just reflect on facts like who you saw, what you did or ate, just what songs you listened to that day. So just things like that are factual instead of having to really sift through what's important and what's not important. You're just getting your memories down. This is good for people who like to use journals for memory keeping. If you use it for processing your thoughts, this isn't as useful, and maybe you just don't have any thoughts you feel like you need to process today. If you only use your journals to process thoughts, you probably aren't going to need to journal every day, because hopefully you aren't having intense thoughts that need to be dealt with every single day of your life. And finally, this one here is a little bit similar. This one was actually somebody wrote in this answer, but we're going to include it, of course, anyway. This person is saying that they feel overwhelmed by having to, They feel overwhelmed by having to recount or write all or any of it, and they've also forgotten some. So again, this can just come just by sticking in memorabilia, doing bullet points, using your phone, the text messages, the pictures, and the audio recording capabilities of your phone as a tool to help you out with your journaling. This is a good time if you're running into these problems, and a lot of the problems we're going to see in the future. You may want to have a printer on hand to be able to quickly convert electronic data into hard copy data for your journal. Something else you can do if you don't like that method is, and you want to actually hear yourself read out the notes. Most people don't like the sound of their own voice, but some people do want to hear the tone they used when they read their audio journaling. So what you can do, you can actually upload that audio file to the cloud, whether to Google Drive or to YouTube or to SoundCloud or wherever you want to put it to, that you feel safe and secure with your data. And then you can actually print out a QR code link to that particular audio file. So you can just scan it with your phone and listen to it when you go back to that entry. So you can do that with a thermal printer or with a regular printer, and it's really easy to do. Just Google it. I'm going to make a video about it in the distant future, so don't depend on me for how to do this. But you can just Google it, and a QR code can be a really quick, handy way to link to any kind of media that you feel is important to your day, so you don't feel restricted by the physical medium of your journal. Alright, so we actually got through that first category. Go us. What's the next category? Do you remember what the second place category was? That's right, people who don't feel that they have anything to write about. Okay, so first one of the subcategories within this one, because why do people not feel like they have anything to write about? This was not the one that I thought was going to be the most. Actually, I'm not sure these are in order anymore. I'm pretty sure I'm out of order. Let me go in order, because otherwise, what's the point of the survey? Am I right? If we're not actually going to go in order of who said the most, my mind just goes blank. This was the top one, and this one is pretty easy to combat. This one used to happen to me a lot. Just intimidation from staring at a blank page. So what you can do is you can do stream of consciousness. That one is really, really easy. You just start writing, I don't have anything to write about, and you draw squiggles, and you just write random words that fly into your head, and then eventually you get going. And the more you do this, the less you'll have to spend wasting time on the random stuff, and the faster it will be for you to just get straight to the point. This is something where practice makes perfect, and it's kind of fun to write stream of consciousness. I loved exercises growing up when you just had 5 minutes and you had to write, and your pen couldn't stop moving for 5 minutes. So just challenge yourself to that. 5 minutes might be a while, just try 2 minutes. You might be surprised with what you actually come up with in those 2 minutes when you aren't inhibited by that paralysis and you know you have to write. Another one you can do is my personal favorite, if you've been on this channel at all, is pre-decorating your pages. Put down that fancy paper, put down some stickers, use up some washi tape, stick in some junk mail and some magazine collage. Whatever you want to do it ahead of time when you have a few hours to yourself, or even just half an hour. Relax, put on your favorite YouTuber, and just go to town on those pages so that when you get there with your thoughts, with your personal baggage that you want to unpack, or even with your memories, when you open that journal, you're not faced with this blinding white, or even, let's face it, blinding ivory, or even blinding black. Some people have black page journals, which are really cool. Staring up at you, challenging you, insulting you, and calling you names, quite frankly. You don't want to deal with that. And when it's covered up with pre-decorations, it does two things. First of all, it actually gives you something to put on the page that is going to make you feel like, well, this has already been defiled, so I can just write on it. So it takes away that feeling of sacredness that sometimes comes with a blank page for some people. It's very psychological. And the second thing that it does is it actually takes up space on the page, so you don't have to fill up as much, because what are you going to write over that beautiful sticker? Of course not. You're going to write around it. And the more you put down ahead of time, the less you actually have to write to feel like you're making progress. And once you start to turn pages and feel like you're filling up the journal, well, it just gets harder and harder to stop. So this one I think is the easiest one to get over, so I'm glad it was a popular category. In terms of percentages, if I can just check real quick, it looks like that one is 60% of people who said they didn't have anything to write about. So 60% of 12.3%. So just do that math right there. I'll do it. That's about 7.4% of people, if I did my math right, which is not a guarantee. But that's about 7.4% of people who had this problem. So if you were in that 7.4%, just try these things out. I almost guarantee you that you're not going to have the problem much longer, because everybody goes through this phase and most people figure out how to get over it. And so you're probably just haven't figured that out yet. So there's some cheats to get you ahead of it. All right, next one. These are a little more tricky. This one is a mouthful, but let's see if you can guess what the solution is, because it's pretty simple. I have things that I could write about, but the process of writing them down is so time consuming that it just isn't worth it to me. So it's a time issue at the end of the day. It's an issue if you don't want to take the time. Maybe not that you don't have it, but you don't want to take the time because you just don't want to deal with it. So you can actually just use bullets, do the memorabilia thing. Again, just slap down things that you've collected throughout your day. But probably something else you could do that would be a little bit more interesting if you don't feel like verbally rehashing everything is, why don't you just make some art? Why don't you just make a collage or a drawing? It doesn't have to be a good drawing. No one else is going to see it. So you can just write down or draw, or maybe make a poem of some kind. Just try some other medium of getting out your thoughts. You can use other things too, like maybe you can have a playlist or a movie quote, or I don't know, a sticker, something like that you can put in, that you don't have to take the task and the time of writing it all out by hand, but you can still capture that moment, capture that mood, and kind of get where you were, so that maybe later when you feel like writing a little bit more, even if that's infrequent, you know, kind of you have that context in your journal to be able to go back and unpack the things that you do feel you need to unpack later in the future. Okay, so here is the crazy one next, which is, I have too much to write about. I can hardly believe this is real, but apparently it is. I can't relate, I'll tell you that much. So the first reason that people said they had too much to write about was that they had the desire to write down a lot of detail about their day. So again, we have a situation that boils down to time, okay? You have a lot of stuff you want to write because your day was busy, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I have to sit down and write all of this, and next thing I know, it's 10 p.m., and now I just have to go straight to bed. Nobody wants to do that. We all have lives. So instead of that, guess what you can do? You can use audio journaling. You can use bullet point journaling. You can use memorabilia stuffing, and just slap down whatever on that page. It doesn't have to be neat. Make it nice and messy, and then there's your day. Your day is visual. You know somebody who does a really good job of this? Now, she does a more time-consuming version, but you could easily translate it into a less time-consuming version if you don't spend as much time on the decorating part, is Emmylou Arts. She does a very visual kind of journaling where she just sticks in memorabilia from her days, and she does a really great job of visually capturing what her days are like. So you can do this without having to do magazine collaging. You can actually just use, you know, stuff you gather throughout your day. I don't need to repeat myself any more than that. Next one. This one is a little bit trickier, a little bit less cliche. This one says, I have complex thoughts, ideas, and emotions that each... Hi, so I had an audio issue at this point that sounded like the devil dropped out of college and invited his frat brothers to start a garage band in my microphone, so I'm going to be doing a voiceover for this part. But basically what I was saying was that, you know, you have these ideas that take a lot of time to explore. It's really the same thing as the other time-related constraints, so a lot of the advice is going to be the same. We're going to have the same try audio journaling ideas and try using memorabilia as well. But another thing you can do is you can actually make a numbered list, an ordered list of those thoughts, ideas, and emotions from the most to the least important. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide two benefits, because the second step is actually to go through those things one at a time in that order, and that bullet point is going to appear in a second. Bear with me. Yep, there it is. There's the bullet point. And the benefit here is twofold, because first and foremost, you have the benefit of getting those thoughts off your chest, all of them, by writing the bullet point down. And then for the most important ones, you're actually going to have the ability to process them more fully. So it's not going to be perfect. You're never going to have that perfect journal entry where everything gets processed all the way through, but this is going to really help with the efficiency and the utility of your journal entry, rather than just getting overwhelmed by how many things you have to talk about. You'll at least deal with all of them in some way and deal with the most important ones as much as you really have the time. It's a great way to do the best that you can, and it has helped me a lot with this particular problem. Here's another one that I didn't expect anybody to select. First of all, let's be honest, I thought I was going to get maybe 2 responses. I didn't expect to get any. I didn't expect this to be a video. I just wanted to give it the old college try because I do like making surveys. So I had fun either way, but there was actually a response. I'm actually going to put this on the next slide because it is so very full. PowerPoint never quite behaves the way I expect it to, and it's always a fun surprise. Alright, so I burned through journals very quickly due to how prolific I am. Now, if I had known that even one person was actually going to select this answer, I almost didn't include it. Because who has this problem? Who writes too much? Well, actually a lot of people, if you're part of the community and you follow a lot of journaling community people, they have hundreds of thousands of journals. Not thousands, but hundreds. There's a lot of completed journals that these people have. So, this was a problem for people. And I just want to know, I mean, you're not journaling because you don't want to burn through them. You don't want to waste them. You're spending too much. You don't have the space for all these journals. What is the reason that this is a negative thing? Because to me, I have my little journal shelf. I've only got 20-something journals, and I'm 20-something myself. Most people my age in the community have like upwards of 100, so I feel like I'm behind. I'm happy to have a lot of journals filled. But apparently some people are distressed by this. So I'd like to know why. If that's you, please drop a comment. I'm not going to do a follow-up survey because I've already pestered enough people on Instagram and Reddit, so I'm going to leave this one be. But I am curious. But I gave it some thought, and I imagine that it's probably because something to do with the cost of the journals and the space to store all of the journals, and feeling that maybe you're burning through them too quickly, you're not appreciating them enough. So I had a couple of different ideas for how to handle this. So my first one is to invest some time in finding a journal that meets the following 3 criteria. You like it, it's affordable, doesn't take up much space. And what popped into my head immediately for this particular problem is a knockoff traveler notebook. So here's what I would do if this is your problem. And I'm saying this, I'm not recommending this out of my butt. I'm actually recommending it based on people that I follow who have filled up a lot of journals. Some of them have huge trunks full of it, but one person, Girl in Quill, she's pretty prolific, and she had a long phase where she was just using traveler's notebook inserts. Now, here's the deal. There are knockoff traveler notebooks all over the place. You just need the cover, and then you need the inserts. And the inserts are what you replace. And they're very thin, and you can use tons of them at once. They don't take up a lot of space, and they can be very affordable. You can even make them yourself. You can make really pretty ones yourself out of trash. Make junk journal traveler notebooks inserts. And they have fake ones at Michael's, fake ones you can buy on Amazon in bulk. This is something that could be really, really helpful for you. You might even be able to get extra thick ones if you're burning through that quickly. Tomo River paper is a little more expensive, but it's thinner, so that'll be more space saving. That's just my idea, and eventually, if you can save up the money, you can get a really nice cover, so you feel like you have a nice journal with you all the time, even though you're writing so much. So I imagine some people who have this problem are buying really nice journals, like Barnes & Noble type journals, and then they just blow through it, and they're like, man, I didn't even get to appreciate that. And I'm actually kind of experiencing that with my current journal here. Even though it's not expensive, I really like it, and I feel like it's almost gone, and I just got started, and I'm going to miss it. But that's okay. If you have like a cover that is really valuable and really fun to use, then cycling through the inserts isn't going to be as taxing on you emotionally, and you'll just be able to be free to write as much as you want without having to worry about the cost, the recurring cost, let me say, because the official traveler notebook covers are very expensive, but the inserts, you can get cheap knockoff ones if you don't mind, and those are going to be no big deal to replenish. So anyway, if I repeated myself enough times, I think I have. I think there are other options for this as well. For me personally, I don't blast through them that quickly, but this one's about $10 each. I love these. They have them at the dollar store. They have even cheaper ones at Michael's. I think they have $5 journals that are pretty good quality. So yeah, you're not going to be getting a Leuchtturm every single time. Maybe you could save those for special occasions, but you're going to need to find a system that works for you. So just sit down, do a little research. It could be fun. And if you have any tips on this, if you have a journal that you know that you like, it's affordable, and it doesn't take up a lot of space, just drop that down in the comments so that anybody else who comes across this video can benefit from your knowledge, because we just want to help each other out here. Then the other solution I found to this problem, if you're not finding a good journal that works like this for you, you're just not finding that solution. This is an approach that I do not find particularly appealing, but I've seen it work for a lot of people, almost everybody honestly, is that you split up your journaling into various categories and therefore different notebooks. So you might have one notebook for a dream journal if you're writing your dreams down every day. I've been doing that ever since daylight savings. I've been remembering all of my dreams, and I journal them first thing in the morning. I could have a separate notebook just for that. You could have one for recipes, one for memory keeping, one for emotional processing. You know, those are two very different things, and some people really do like to have two separate journals for those two separate things. So that could help you feel like you're not blasting through things as quickly, or maybe you're going to blast through your memory keeping journal really fast, but not the thoughts journal as quickly. So you should just experiment with different multi-journal configurations that could help you not blow through them as quickly, and you might be able to identify what's causing you to blow through them so quickly. And of course, if there's some kind of problematic habit where you are depending too much on your journal, as we've talked about in previous videos, other creators talk about this. If that's something you don't want to do, maybe you should just take a step back and try to restrict your journaling a little bit. If it's taking up too much time, too much space, and you're feeling like it's a crutch and something you're dependent on, nobody wants that. So that's something you can kind of look at, reflect upon yourself, and then move forward as you see fit. Finally, here's one I didn't think was going to be a problem, but it was. Almost didn't include this one either because it sounds so silly, but then I remembered in the annals of my mind, I remembered that this was a problem for me a little bit when I was younger. I think that it is important to record many details about contemporary life so that there are primary sources available for future historians. Whew! May I just say that this is so much pressure to put on yourself to feel like you are recording history for the future. I know how that feels when not that many people journal anymore. It's not as common as it used to be, and people kind of just use their computers, and one day all this digital media is probably going to be lost forever. I mean, there is probably going to be a digital dark age, is what people are. Some people who are credible, but I can't remember them now. They have said this, that we're going to, digital data is very, what's the word? Temporal. That's not the word. Ephemeral. So it kind of disappears really quickly and isn't permanent, and, in 300 years, your Facebook profile probably won't be around anymore. Your iCloud photos won't be around anymore, and you'll be forgotten. So either you're thinking that you need to record about life, or you're feeling like you need to preserve who you are for the future in a way that a lot of people growing up our age and using the digital technology that we have are not going to be preserved. It's scary, and it can really be a big burden. So I'd recommend, maybe trying to identify, work through this feeling of pressure a little bit. Just do a little bit of work on that so that you can kind of alleviate that pressure, because that's a lot to carry around, and you're never going to have a journal that measures up to that kind of standard. You're never going to have a journal that you really feel great about a historian finding one day and basing their knowledge of our era and of you personally entirely. It's too much for one person to bear. So you need to make peace with the fact that you'll never meet that standard. But then, of course, you can do, I'm just going to write this, dumps. So memorabilia dumps, like we talked about. That's going to shorten things. What did a receipt look like from this time period? Never mind, it's going to fade in 22 years, because that's what thermal printed things do. They fade. What's a movie stub look like? What movies were there? What kind of a flyer did you get from your church? What kind of book did you read that you have a quote from? What was on TV? So just bullet points of just things that happened. What is the price of gas? Stuff like that. Pictures that you took, print them out, put them in there. That's the fastest, easiest way to get this stuff taken care of and to have the most complete picture of what life is like, what your life is like. And something else I thought of, you can do The Devil Returned. So I just wanted to say that you can also use newspaper clippings and magazine clippings, as long as those things are available to you, because then you can just cut out the most important articles and stick them straight into your journal, and that'll give a really clear picture of what life is like without really having to put in a lot of effort on your part. It's going to reduce the burden on you. And finally, because we are in a digital age, why don't you take some screenshots of your newsfeed? Whether you have a news app that you like to use for news, or a particular site, or whatever podcast you're listening to, take a screenshot of the description. Your Facebook feed, what are your family and friends up to? Just take a screenshot and just print that puppy out, and then you're going to have that in your journal, and that'll be a hard copy saved version of that information for historians and for your legacy. But it's really important to alleviate that pressure, because let me tell you, we have to accept the fact that our journals are hard copies if that's how you're journaling, and my channel does work under that assumption. So if your journals are lost, if they're burned in the fire, or if they're lost, or if somebody steals them, you need to be able to handle that mentally, because that could break a person if you're really putting yourself under that much pressure that this is my legacy and this is the legacy of our era. So hopefully the people aren't taking this too seriously. It's just a case of being a little bit overwhelmed by how thorough they feel they have to be. But just remember, it's not all up to you. There are other people who are finding other ways of record keeping, I am sure. And you can use this in the meantime to alleviate the time constraint that is inherent in this situation. So, thank you so much for watching. That has been part 1. We're going to get into part 2 and part 3 in the coming months. Yes, these videos are not coming out quickly. They are hard to make, and they are time consuming to make. So it's going to be a very long period of time. But I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any suggestions or input below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.